Luke 13, 6 through 9, the parable of the barren fig tree. A certain man had a fig tree planted in his vineyard, and he came seeking fruit on it and had found none. Then he said to the keeper of the vineyard, "Look, for 3 years I have come seeking fruit on the fig tree and have found none. Cut it down. Why does it use up the ground?" But he answered and said to him, "Sir, let it alone this year also, until I dig around it and fertilize it. And if it bears fruit, well, and if not, after that you can cut it down." Thank you. You may be seated. In the mid-1970s, my family and I lived in Corpus Christi, Texas. My dad worked in the oil and gas industry with Halliburton Services, and I was the services, and he was gone most of the time. And Mother was a stay-at-home mom and raised 3 boys, my brothers and I. Mom made sure we were always in church, and around 1978, I was baptized in the church. Around 1970, and a year or so later, Mom and Dad were going through a divorce. Mother asked for help from the pastor of the church and her friends. And they said, "Sorry, we can't help you." I can remember Mom going home and crying. I was 14 years old then. I always remember looking in the bathroom and seeing my mother standing in the mirror, big old tears coming down her face. And I thought to myself, what a bunch of hypocrites. They talk about praying for each other and being there for each other when things go wrong, and spiritually uplifting each other, but that didn't happen. So at 14, that kind of stuck with me. Friends, when the divorce was final, Mom moved to Bay City, Texas, and Dad stayed in Corpus Christi working with Halliburton. My parents let my brothers and I choose who we wanted to live with. My oldest brother went with Mom. My little brother and I stayed with my dad. Shortly thereafter, I quit high school. Only had half a credit to graduate, and I quit school. I couldn't stand home any longer, raising a little brother by myself and Daddy 350 miles out in the Gulf of Mexico. And the further away from church I got. My first job was being a welder's helper. The guy I worked with loved to drink beer. My welder and I, we lived in the same apartment complex and ended up drinking beer with each other every day and on our days off. As time went by, my beer drinking increased, and the farther away from the church I got. But if someone was to ask me if I believed in Jesus, I wouldn't hesitate to say yes. Or if I was a Christian, oh yeah, I'm a Christian. I finally got a job with Halliburton Services, just like my dad, my grandfather, and his 4 brothers. I was the 3rd generation of Halliburton, the 7th one. But my dream didn't last long. After 4 years, I was laid off from Halliburton, and I became a prison guard in the Texas Department of Corrections. My little brother, Bub, and I, we started working together in a prison just outside of Brazoria, Texas in 1986. Beer drinking.
Just keep on.
Okay. Beer drinking was a priority on the weekends. Lucky for me, Brazoria, Texas was home of the Armadillo Ballroom, the place to go and drink really cold beer. Back in that day, we called it the Killer Diller. My life was about to change in a big way, but I just didn't know it yet. My brother met this school teacher.
Go ahead and click that one off.
Okay.
This one.
Are you trying to keep it?
That sounds better.
Okay. Awesome. My brother had met this school teacher. I wish she was sitting here because I'd point at her. Met this school teacher, and she had a girlfriend with her. and we all decided to go to Surfside Beach down at Freeport, Texas. The girls were following us over this tall bridge going to Surfside Beach. My brother needed a beer. My brother had his big jacked up four-wheel drive, big balloon tires, headache rack, KC fog lights, and a sliding glass window in the back. He said, "Darrel, I need a beer." Okay. We were doing about 80 miles an hour. Girls were behind us. We're going over this bridge. And he said, "I'm thirsty, get me a beer." And I said, "All right." And I climbed out the window, doing 80 miles an hour. And I was passing beers through the window. Climbed back around. We both popped the top and went to the beach. We got down to the beach and finally got to meet the girls. The driver of the car was Becky Richards. Her passenger was Sandy Riley. For the first time I met Becky, I knew she was something special. After 3 weeks of knowing her and us talking nonstop, I asked her to marry me. After a few more times of asking her, she finally said yes. I guess I was pretty persistent. And on October the 6th, Becky and I were headed to Mom's house in Iago. She had gotten remarried to a man named Carl McLeod. We were just going to tell them we had just gotten engaged. Things didn't quite go as planned. We ended up going underneath an 18-wheeler. An off-white Mustang had dead stopped in the passing lane, no blinkers showing. This was a 4-lane highway with no median, just blacktop, all 4 lanes. I could see, the water, the 18-wheeler was splashing up dirty water, of course, and I had the windshield wipers going on high. I couldn't see the off-white Mustang until I just passed that truck, and then it was too late. I knew I didn't want to go far left because I might have a head on, but I saw a gap between the Mustang and the 18-wheeler, and I tried to shoot the gap. Well, that didn't go as planned either. I barely nicked the Mustang. It put us underneath the truck. There was a tire rack right in front of the back tandems. I told Becky to get out, and I pulled up on the emergency brake. This is her brand new car. I pulled up on the emergency brake and cut the steering wheel hard left. We went into a spin across the road. Lucky for us, there was an EMT, a paramedic from the local Angleton Fire Department, who saw the whole thing happen. He saw me go to pass, he saw the Mustang, he saw the accident happen. We drove off the side of the road. But after the accident, Becky and I stopped at the store and got a couple of beers to celebrate our engagement. We hadn't started drinking yet, but she opened hers, so after the wreck, the car smelled like beer. Lucky for us, there was a paramedic who saw everything happen, and the guy in the off-white Mustang said they were drunk. He said they wasn't drunk. If they were drunk, y'all all been dead. So I took the blanket and I hid it out in the woods before the cops got to the scene. The beer cans came from the beach the previous day. I forgot to clean out the car, and of course the guy who was driving the Mustang told that EMT they were drunk. God surely works in mysterious ways. None of us were hurt. After all was said and done, my brother John McLeod happened to drive up on the scene of the accident. What a godsend that was. And took Becky and I home to Mom's house. Becky called her parents and asked her mom if we could get married. The wedding was going to be in June, but on November the 29th of 1986, we were married. We were married in New Orleans, Louisiana. Fast forward to May of '87. I left Becky 6 months pregnant. Halliburton had called me back to work in Alice, Texas, which is 160 miles away. I was putting in a lot of long hours, still not going to church or reading my Bible, and still drinking. I was living with a guy that I worked with on a daily basis. Becky and I only had one car at that time, and she would come to see me when she could. So when our first son, Walsh, was born, on October the 14th of '87, I rode a Greyhound bus to see him born. After Walsh was born, Becky and Walsh remained in Clute, Texas. When Becky was through teaching in Brazosport, she and Walsh came to live with me in Alice. In December of '87, I was still putting in a lot of long hours, not home very much, We still were not going to church, but still spending time as a family when we could. We lived in Alice for about 2 years before being transferred to Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Still again, I wasn't going to church. I was drinking, of course, beer, putting in long hours. When I say drinking much, I'm not talking 1 or 2 beers. It's 1 or 2 6-packs, if not an 18-pack. My drinking had really gone, but I never went to work drunk. And seeing my family, it was really getting old. And I asked Becky a few times if she wanted me to quit. And she said no. She'd tell me no every time because it was my passion. On December the 30th of 1990, our second son, William, was born. Well, life threw us a curveball. And I was asked if I wanted to move to Kalkaska, Michigan, Aberdeen, Scotland, or Sonora, Texas. Becky and I chose to move our family to Sonora. So in the summer of '91, we moved our family to Sonora, Texas. We barely got moved in, and William got really sick. We rushed him to the hospital looking for the doctor for help. This fella dressed up like a goat roper with a straw hat, with blue jeans, asked if we needed help. And Becky said, yes, we do. We were looking for the doctor, and he said, I am the doctor. He looked more like a vet. We were kind of concerned there. Dr. Projescott and his male nurse, Ram Chavez, got our son William stabilized. Another time, God had protected us. Dr. Projescott said if we had tried to move Will with that long trip to San Angelo, which was about 75 miles away, Will had died. Becky went to the Methodist parsonage looking for help after I had told her no because they wouldn't help us. Well, God proved me wrong. And we grew closer. No, we were so glad God answers prayers. Reverend Clay Hall and Cheryl were such gracious people. The next day, they moved William by ambulance to San Angelo, but hadn't even joined the Methodist Church yet, and Clay and Cheryl showed up asking if they could do anything for us. Becky asked them if they would check on our dog, and we needed some clothes washed. Reverend Clay washed those clothes, not Cheryl, and we were both so surprised. In the summer of 1991, we finally joined the Methodist Church as a family. Halliburton kept me busy, but I went to church when I could, which was not very much, and I still was not reading my Bible. On May the 12th of 1992, my dad had passed away in Victoria, Texas, which was about 300 miles away. We had nobody to officiate the funeral, but Reverend Clay Hall, we asked Reverend Clay if he would do that for us, and he was more than honored to do so. In early 1994, we thought Becky had cancer, but the cancer had a heartbeat. We stayed in Sonora, Texas, and on November the 15th of '94, our daughter Megan was born in San Angelo. I finally got a promotion I'd been waiting on, so we moved the family to Palestine, Texas in '96. We went through some very trying times in Palestine that made our family even closer and stronger. In 1999, Halliburton struck again. The oil and gas industry really slowed down, and I was being demoted. I had to live in Kilgore within 3 weeks. Let's say my 20-year career with Halliburton was over. God definitely had a plan and moved us to family land in Queen City. So in the summer of 1999, we joined the Methodist Church in Queen City, Texas. I started a new career, being a school bus driver and a teacher's assistant. Becky and our kids would go to church, but I would sometimes still not reading my Bible like I should, and I was still drinking. Queen City Methodist Church did not have a youth group. We're not a very big one, but the Atlanta Methodist Church had a great program. So the Hearn family joined the Atlanta Methodist Church in 2005. But I still was not fully committed, and I was still drinking. My past would come back to haunt me, thinking of how the church treated my parents. And I've carried this feeling all my life until this year, which was in 2021. my brother, let's see, and then my mother passed away in 2006. My older brother and she were very close. He had turned to alcohol and lost his family and everything he had worked so hard to build for his life. He went to living, as far as living on the streets of Houston, sleeping under the interstates and eating out of dumpsters. My oldest brother, an older man from the homeless shelter, saw the potential in my brother and handed him a Bible and said, if you read this Bible and give your heart to Jesus, he will change your life. So my brother did what the man said, and now God has turned my brother's life around. Now my brother shares the word of Jesus with the homeless. I asked my brother, how did you do it? How did you turn your life around? And he explained to me about living in the flesh and living in the spirit. That's what I have on my notebook. And when he gave me this, I read what my brother told me to read about living in the spirit, living in the flesh. Becky was working here at the nursery. That's when Drew was here, Drew Weber. Becky came home, and she says, Darrel, there's a preacher I think you'd love to hear. He's not like we've ever had, and I think you'd like to listen to him. And I said, sure. She said, what? I said, sure, Beck, I'll go. So my Sunday off, I went to church. And the first sermon I heard out of Drew was talking about walking in the flesh and walking in the spirit. Tears welled up in my eyes. And Becky nudged me and said, the Holy Spirit's got you. And I said, you're right. Well, I rededicated my life, 2021. That evening, I went home and I did a big tearful prayer before I went to bed. And I said, Lord, I want to live for you. I want to be your servant, Lord. I am tired of this drinking. I'm tired of the life I'm living. Please change me. The next morning, I woke up at 4:30 because I had to be at Cooper at 6. And I picked the Bible up and I started in the book of Matthew. And I started reading. I couldn't put it down. And then I started praying. And now I pray every day. Pray throughout the day. I read 3 to 4 scriptures a day. I've already read the Bible 3 times through now. The Bible is the first book I've ever read from cover to cover. Like I said, I didn't read the Bible much or any kind of book. I didn't like to read. I couldn't stand to read. I didn't like people much either. I was a recluse. You give me a 12-pack of beer, a bottle of beer, and sit me under a pine tree with the birds, and I'm happy. That's my life right there, content. Anyway, I finally gave it up. But Jesus turned me around. I turned and found him, and he's never left my side. Thank you, Lord Jesus, for everything you've given to me. I started the prison ministry with Richard New. Drew, he sat up here and asked me questions, but it wasn't the same as what I'm doing now. I finally got to give my full testimony to a bunch of inmates, 250 inmates, cafeteria full of convicts. I gave them my testimony, and Richard New said, I was wondering if I was ever going to get you to talk, but now I got to learn how to shut you up. But anyway, God does work in mysterious ways. I know he's saved my life, and I know he can save anybody who asks the Lord for help. Because there's some times, I have faced some stuff since I've been sober and wished, well, not really, wish I went back to drinking, but would have caused somebody to go drinking. But the Lord has always been there. He's given me a strength. I know my wife has asked me a time or two, how do you stay so strong in such a bad situation? And I said, baby, it's all God. It's all Jesus. I went to a party one time for the first time sober. Becky and I have been married this past November 38 years. For 34 years of that marriage, I was drinking. We were headed home to Baton Rouge to go to a bridal shower for my niece. I looked at Beck, she was driving, and I said, you realize this is the first time I've ever gone home sober. I'd always stop at the nearest convenience store, state line, get me a double shot, triple shot of vodka or tequila on my daiquiri. Then about Arkadelphia, I'd buy a 12-pack or Nacogdoches. I'd buy a 12-pack. By the time I got to New Orleans or Baton Rouge, it was gone. But I'd quit. We went to this party, and Uncle Don, who's been a member of AA for 45 years, he heard I heard you quit. He said, "How did you do it? Al-Anon? AA? How did you quit?" I said, "Don, I took it to the greatest physician there is. I took it to God, and God healed me. He took that craving away." And he said, "What?" I said, "If he can raise the dead and cure the blind and make the lame walk, don't you think he can take some craving of alcohol away?" What an awesome God we have. Thank y'all.